All right, guys, welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. Got a very special guest on this week, Steve Giordano, top producer in all of Family First Life. Steve, it's an honor, man. How are you doing?
I'm terrific. Great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm pumped to learn from you. I'm pumped for everyone else to get to experience this training together. And so, man, let's start here. Kind of give us a brief overview of your experience with the company, how you found us, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I had found FFL through Mark Mead back, about 4.5 years ago, prior to even being licensed. And I was looking for change in my life and career. Worked entirely in food and nutrition and hospitality, and really wanted to have my own thing, but did not know where to go to find it and didn't know what I didn't know. And kind of fell into insurance, had some interest in the financial services, and then, the power of one market, Mark just telling me at that time what he was doing and then showing me FFL. And, FFL was a completely different animal back, 3.5, almost 4 years ago. So that really got me going. And then things were not working out in the hospitality industry where I was. I was a food nutrition director. And then it was just time to make the move and make the jump. And I'm so glad I did. It's been a wild, crazy ride, right? And a crazy rewarding one with a lot of hard work and a lot of grind. But it's been truly incredible and life-changing for my family.
So you came into the company. How long, you said, how long have you been with the company?
It'll be, 4 years in February. So about 3.5.
Wow. Had you ever done sales prior to this?
Nothing. I mean, I was a server, bartender, chef, district manager. I was all hospitality, never sales.
Dude, that's insane. Because so many people come from a sales background, man, and they have not had the results that you have had in these last 3, almost 4 years. So let me ask you this. What are some of the things that you brought from the serving industry to the insurance industry?
Yeah, great question. The number one thing was the work ethic, right? So, all those years I worked nights, holidays, weekends, 60, 70. I mean, so many hours you stopped counting. And I said to myself, once I had started this part-time, because I did it part-time for 2 months to try and figure it out and, see if it was for me. I remember running the part-time schedule for 2 months and, I think I protected like maybe 9 or 10 families both month. And I'm like, wait a minute. So if I could take that same time and work that I had in restaurants where like you had to be there and then do it in this venture where you don't have to be anywhere, but if you just discipline yourself to be there that much and run that many appointments and dial that much and go above and beyond, sky's the limit. I think that was my biggest thing. It was just taking that, hey, I'm going to transition the way I work from here to here and be the same mentality, but only we get paid a lot more when we work that hard.
Yeah, dude, that's so insane. I see, including myself, I put myself in this category that I'm going to talk about. So many people come into this opportunity thinking that they've earned the freedom to do all those things they dream about day one. And you did not take that approach.
Definitely not.
So
now 100%. And I think that is the kiss of death when you get into it like that.
Yeah, 100%. So, dude, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that in the last 3 years. So, it goes without saying, top producer, 2 years running or 3 years running?
This would be 3 years if I can finish this one off. It's going to be hard.
It's crazy, dude. You've got some people coming on your heels, man.
I know, bro. And my first year, I was number 2. And I always remind Jonathan Porcina I'm number 2 because I started in February and he had the head start in January. But I was close.
Right. Dude, so I know I know you're competitive, right? So when you're seeing these guys come in and they're super new, man, right? The system obviously is allowing people to have the results at a much faster pace. Dude, when you're driving around in your Tesla every day, you're helping families, what are you thinking about?
I love that. And I'll tell you why, because it shows Look, at the end of the day, the personal production is awesome, and don't get me wrong, what it does for your family, and the biggest override's always on your own pen. But when you can see so many people come in and have that success, it's so much better because one, it drives me to do more. And it makes me understand that if I take a break and go take a nap, like somebody's going to lapse me, number one. And number two, the bigger thing is it shows everybody else out there that you can do this if you put in what it takes. So I love the fact that we have such, massive growth and top producers all over the place.
Yeah, 100%, man. Now, one thing, I remember seeing you for the first time the day I got my license. This would have been May of 2020. There was a sales conference in Lake Mary. Jared ran that one. I got my license in Daytona Beach, and Gabe Erickson sent me the graphic for the sales conference, and he was talking to me about some of the people that were going to be there, and he said, hey, man, you make sure you're there for Steve Giordano. He's a beast. Dude, I didn't know what that meant. Obviously now here we are 2 years later, I have a better idea. And then, I got to meet you and your wife at the Jersey at Mark Mead's awards dinner. And honestly, man, genuinely two of the nicest people in the company. And I really mean that. And we just were so impressed with you and your wife, sincerely, dude. But here's kind of what I've noticed with you, man, is amazing consistency. Talk to us a little bit about the power of consistency.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like you have to strive for discipline so you can give yourself consistency. Every day, every week, every month, it's a new challenge. It's a new, you're trying to figure out, how do I be consistent, right? And I feel like if you focus there, you will be consistent because you start having consistent daily routine and daily habit. I'll give you a crazy example. On Friday, I had a light schedule. I didn't get a great lead flow. I definitely screwed up on the leads. So 7:45, she says, hey, can you walk the dog? And I'm like, no, I can't walk the dog. I have 3 appointments and I need to get on call transfers at 8:00. And lo and behold, I get on call transfers at 8:00 and bang, 4 families protected on first 2 call transfers at 8:00. Now I could have went and walked the dog. And, if you want a happy marriage, maybe you go walk the dog. But the wife was a little bit happier that I went and, made that money because I was just disciplined, because mentally I'm like, 8:00 is like time to work. It always is weird to me when people do this and it's like they stroll in to dial late, or they lax on their appointments or whatever they do. You'll lose. I fear loss more than I'm like, oh, I want to win. You know what I mean? I want to win, clearly. But I think you have to have that mentality. I don't care if it's selling, dialing, recruiting, helping your team. You have to go above and beyond in anything you do in life to find the success you're looking for.
Yeah, that's so true, man. And that was a huge pitfall of mine, really my first year. Dude, you work a little bit, your bank account goes up, then you take a vacation because you can, and then your bank account goes down, and you ride that roller coaster. And that's not a ride you're willing to take, sounds like.
The business is amazing, but if you don't respect it and work it correctly, it will eat you alive.
Oh, yeah, 100%, dude. And I don't remember who I heard say that. I think I heard Sean Mike say something similar to that. And dude, that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And now I sell that to every new agent I can. This can be so rewarding, but this will crush you if you don't treat it with respect, for sure. So obviously, man, to sell on as high a level as you do, obviously you're in home. There's a lot of things you're doing outside the home, but your in home is very strong. Did it start out that way, or did you have some speed bumps?
Yeah, I definitely had some speed bumps. I think early on, the negative coming from hospitality was being Mr. Nice with everybody, right? Because in hospitality, it's always I'm above and beyond for people, right? Here, you are that way, but I tell people you're that way once you're my client. So meaning we have to have some healthy back and forth in the appointment, and you also have to have a lot of patience in appointments. to then get them to be your client, and then you're Mr. Hospitality. You know what I mean? Like then anytime they call you, sending them cards, sending them Christmas, whatever. That was something I struggled with early on because I'm like, why is it not clicking right away? And I figured it out. I was trying to be too nice and go above and beyond. And then that changed, as, I kind of got myself going.
Got it. So when did it click for you? How long were you doing this before you kind of had that aha moment and things just started working?
The good thing for me was I crushed the learning curve early because I was not stupid enough to think like, oh, hey, let me go try and run 5 appointments and I'm going to be so awesome and close all 5. So I was like fanatical. And even in the beginning, I could go through my numbers. I didn't have that many appointments. And it wasn't even so much because I wasn't trying to. I just wasn't, I was trying to figure out the lead flow. I'm trying to figure out the dialing. I was working. I was door knocking. I was doing everything they said, but I didn't have crazy amounts in the beginning, but then it started really snowballing because I focused on, again, working a full schedule, even if that meant like, all right, I booked 2, like I'm going to go knock on doors and, fill in the rest of the gap. So it clicked for me early because I had definitely crushed through the first 100 appointments quick.
Got it. So you were just a math whiz. I mean, honestly, you just understood the numbers, you understood the power of momentum, and you put all your stock in the activity, not the results.
100%. And it's a hard thing to do because a lot of times you're like, I want massive results. But I mean, Michael Jordan practiced hours upon hours upon hours upon hours to be Michael Jordan. He didn't just like show up to the game and now he's putting up 50 points.
Yeah, for sure. How does a new agent make that mindset shift when maybe they're not in a great financial position, so they need the money, and obviously it's hard to not have that commission breath? How do they make that mindset shift to just focusing on the work?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I think if you're new, I've been thinking about lately where you have to get fanatical about talking about insurance, right? Like clearly we have leads and we sell warm clients and all that jazz. But I mean, if you talk about anything and are passionate about anything, lo and behold, that stuff is going to manifest. So meaning if I'm doing insurance and I'm brand new and I'm buying my leads and I'm calling and I'm dialing, like, am I not posting on social media that I do insurance? Am I not talking to people at my church that I do insurance? Am I not talking to everybody? Same thing goes for recruitment. I'm talking to everybody about it. Then I have that. Then I have leads. Then I have this. And I'm just exhausting my conversation. So if I'm new, I have to not be that secret guy. Oh, yeah, like I'm doing life insurance. No, like I need to be telling people I do life insurance because we all could tell you hundreds of stories from a sales perspective and a recruitment perspective of how many success stories there were based on the passion of the person that was conveying the message. How many people, you're a prime example, if it was Gabe or whoever telling you about this or however you came across it. And now lo and behold, you have an office and a podcast and whatever else. So if you're new from a sales perspective, you have to do the same. Like talk to everybody. Like you have people on social media. Like I guarantee you're going to find some people that want insurance, plus your leads and plus all the activity you're going to put into it.
So you just have to obsess yourself with this.
1,000%.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny you say that because we've had moments, me and my wife, where it's like date night and I'm talking about insurance. And she's like, dude, no, I don't want to talk about insurance right now. I want to talk about our marriage. So now I have to, when I spend time with her, I have to kind of really make myself think of other things to talk about because this thing just consumes my life in a good way for the most part because I'm trying to help so many people. But with that being said, dude, let's kind of dive into some of the things you're doing in the house now that are working. What is your mindset when you're walking into an appointment? You've booked the lead, you're walking into the house to help the client. What's your mindset?
But the first thing is that they're getting insurance. Like there's not this, I want to do my presentation and I hope my presentation's well and then maybe they'll call me back. No, it's this person needs insurance and I don't care what it is that they have or whatever the things they throw at me. I'm going to be able to take it, absorb it, and then move on to the next. So I think that's the first thing you have to do. And then I think another thing that's big is you got to make sure that you get in front of the people, right? So you live in Florida, I live in Florida, right? How many gated communities do we have? Apartment complexes. I'm not telling you to do the wrong thing here, but find a way to get in front of them, because if you don't, it's over. I could tell you so many sales that I made that it was a hard scenario for me to actually get from point A to point B. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be keeping it simple. If you focus on learning the component of the people we meet with, middle America, don't have a ton of time, don't have a ton of extra income. If you focus on that niche and understand that niche, and also understand that niche that there are people that get burned, there are people that fill things out, there are people that get a lot of calls. You have to be a little bit more aggressive with that crowd. Now, you got to massage it a little bit, but you have to be aggressive in the point of, I got to take control. And I have to take control by asking great questions in the house to find where their points of pain are. I tell people this all the time. Insurance is not about, hey, massive $500,000 benefit, so-and-so gets rich, the beneficiary. It's about that middle American income where if they lose one of the incomes, the spouse, the kids, whomever, they are going to have a completely different way of life. So we have to try and backfill and fix the loss for people. So this way they can maintain their level of living when somebody passes away. And you have to convey that to people by asking them great questions. And then the last thing I'd say is being a good underwriter. Products, we have a lot of them. If you want to study products, nobody's ever going to tell you shouldn't study products. Don't study products over making dials, number one. But number two, learn underwriting and learn how to convey the message of, if Bob, you have X condition and you can't get this type of a policy, the sale is me selling you the one you can get. That's how you protect a lot of people, because if I try and sell you everything that you can't get, like, I'm dead man walking. But if I can convey to you why, hey, Bob, at 67, you had some heart issues, like the whole life policy makes more sense than this term that you want. If I can convey that message, then I'm going to make more sales.
Got it. So in a sense, at that point, you're selling really a concept. You're not really selling insurance.
100%.
So you get into the house. How do you kind of tee up the appointment? Because obviously you and I, we're both in Florida. We sit with a lot of folks that are in their twilight years, right? And new agents struggle with those. And to me, bro, those are my favorite clients to sit with. They're the best. I don't prefer to sit with a 25 or 30-year-old who can get a lot of insurance for a little money. I like the older folks who know they're going to pass away. When you're setting the table, do you vary your intro based on who you're sitting with, or do you generally say the same thing in every house?
I pretty much say the same thing, because I want to keep it simple. I sit down, I give them my card, and I say, hey, Bob, I'm Steve. I do final expense insurance, mortgage protection, annuities. I do everything. What we're going to do here today is very simple. We're going to go through your health scenario. We're going to go through your budget. We're going to figure out what makes the best sense for you. Who's going to be your beneficiary, right? So I'm getting right to the point of death. I'm not skirting around it. I think that's something that nobody's happy about, talking about death. And a lot of times new agents certainly have to kind of get over that. But if you can focus there, there's a difference between that, or there's a difference between if I sit with you and it's like, hey, what are you looking for? You want life insurance? What are you looking for? What are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you, like you just said, they want the cheapest thing for the, the most for the cheapest, right? There's no emotion. So I think that was a thing early on. I want to get emotion, and I want to get the beneficiary out there in the open, so we're talking about it. And then I asked the questions, saying, have you ever had anything major, heart, stroke, cancer? What are your meds? Like, I want them to know that I'm there for business. The only kind of rapport that I'll have walking in, I like to just ask you questions about how long you lived in the state, where you're from originally, what do you do for work. I ask you pertinent questions to the appointment. I'm not asking you about, the weather or things that are not pertinent to the appointment. So that's pretty much how I kick it off.
So you're very direct and very intentional right out of the gate, right? And it's interesting you say that, because I just went to a hybrid approach. I'm almost 75% telesales now. And what I'm noticing is my appointments over the phone are maybe 40, 45 minutes. I'm actually still pretty slow in the house. I'm an hour and 15. I don't know where that lines up with where you're at, probably really slow. But then after I sold a couple clients over the phone, I thought, where in the devil does that extra 30 minutes go when I'm in the house? I have no idea. So everything is very intentional throughout the process. So you're getting in there telling them, hey, you're focusing on who are we protecting today? Whether it's the spouse, child, doesn't matter. You're getting right to that point.
100%.
Got it. Okay, so you set the table. And then what are some things that you do you feel like that are pretty strong during the financial inventory?
Yeah, I tell people, we're going to try and find something in your budget. So I want to take that pressure off the bat. And then I like to break down, let's say it's husband and wife. Okay, so we paid this for mortgage or rent. And then you make Bob $1,500 and Mary makes, 12. And then I want to break down, is it Social Security? Is it pension? Is it work? Whatever. I'm always going to break it down by those categories, because what I'm looking to present to them is, you make $7,000 combined today based on these three things: work, retirement, and Social Security. When Bob passes away, you lose X, and I'm writing it out. Because then I'm going to present to them, okay, like, you make 7, your mortgage is 3,000, but when Bob passes, 5,500 of it is Bob. So clearly it makes sense, Mary, you could agree how it's going to make more sense to get the coverage on him, and kind of get that agreement. You're painting the picture of loss. Loss is what sells in insurance, because I need you. And the reality is this, and everybody needs to understand this. They know this already. All the smoke screens they're going to throw at you, which they will throw them, they know this already. That's why you're sitting in their house. They just don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
But once you start actually talking in this way, it's not about like, hey, let me try and get you the most expensive thing and try and sell you. It's like, no, like, Mary, like, we're going to lose $5,500 of income. Like, we clearly need this, right? The other thing is, I love looking at other insurances they have, right? Other insurances sell more insurance than any FFL agent ever will. Meaning, most people also know that what they have isn't good enough. That's why you're there. So do a good job to solidify that. And here's the greatest thing that I love to do. Most people don't have their policies. If they do, great. It means that they're actually kind of sharp and know where their stuff is. If they don't, which most of them don't, I just Google and call the carrier. And I let the carrier tell them how it's not as good as it should be. And I'll tell them as we're calling them, there's a few things I'm looking for in insurances. Will your coverage expire? Will your coverage go up? You have a 2-year wait period, or will it expire down the road? That's it. And I tell them those are the questions I'm going to ask. I just want to know that. Then they tell me whatever it is. 99 times out of 100, it's going to be where you can get them something better. And if it's not, then I'm going to present, hey, why don't we just add to what you have? And that stuff between budget and other insurances, gold. It's a wrap, because then you look credible and you're presenting solutions to their problems.
So you're digging into there, actually trying to show them what they can afford, not trying to upsell them on this magical thing that's going to just make you a paycheck.
Oh, 100%, because I run a lot of appointments. Am I mad if you pay $100? Like, pay $100. Like, I'm not mad. I'll show you probably 3 options max. That's another thing that I think trips people up. You're trying to show 1,000 things. People that get confused will do nothing. Show you 2 to 3 things. which option would fit best in your budget? That's always like my magical question. And then you shut up. I'd probably go with the middle one. Cool. I would go with that too. You can always increase it. Now let's see if we can get it.
Got it. Now, I mean, dude, that's so simple. And that's a crazy thing. And I think every new agent is guilty of this. They think, they listen to the pre-licensing course and they got to come in and spit all this info out to the client. And then they're like, yeah, I want to think about it. And you come in and you're helping so many families a week, giving very minimal information, but you've perfected the right amount to where the client just understands it.
Yeah, less is more. Because again, it goes back to knowing your audience. If I'm over everybody's head with my, oh my God, my great insurance knowledge, which I mean, insurance is like the simplest thing in America.
Yeah.
You're going to lose people and they'll never buy.
Yeah, dude, that's so true, man. I've talked myself out of too many sales. So I understand that for sure. So you get in that and dude, to kind of touch on when you talked about other insurances sell really well, that right there, when I'm thinking, okay, man, I've had a long week. Now I got to go back and run 20, 30 appointments. Well, here's what I know, and you probably know the same thing. If I run 30 appointments and I sit with 15, 5 to 7 of them are already going to have insurance. And there's no work involved in that. You call the carrier. They're like, well, Steve, what can you do for me? Well, it's easy. And so if a new agent or any agent would just run more appointments, they're going to find free money. That's just waiting for them to be picked up. So a few scenarios. So I kind of want to learn from you a couple of things you do in different scenarios. So one specifically that you and I both run into being in Florida is senior mortgage protection. That used to throw me for a loop. You sit down with a client, they've got a $400,000 mortgage. You find out they're 70 and he had a heart attack a year ago or had a stent 4 years ago, right? You're not covering that full mortgage. How do you transition? How do you kind of start selling the concept of like payment protection?
Yeah, great point. I'm glad you brought that one up. So the number one thing, like even before I get into the budget is, okay, I'll write out, all right, 30, you did a refinance, right? Because let's say a lot of these are refinances.
Yep.
And 470, what's the value of your house? Okay. Because right then and there, I just put in my bank or their bank. If the house is worth, 600, I'm writing out, you have 130,000 of equity. So then I like to let them know one of the most important things, the second most important thing after you, Bob, of value is the 130,000 of equity, which we need to protect. So then I'm going to talk about, okay, so this is what most people do. They get equity protection, meaning they're going to cover between a year, I'll usually say a year and 3 years of the mortgage in a lump sum of money. Then I like to let them know, okay, let's think about your mortgage. Over time, that every month you pay it, that 470 goes down, the value goes up. So now that 130 is continuing to grow. So what we're trying to figure out is how do we transition for your wife, let's say, when you pass away and you lose the income, which again, I'm going to touch on when I do that part of it. How do we transition to where she can either one, fix up the house and sell it, or two, leverage the equity and refinance it in her own name? This way she can lower the mortgage payment to reflect where her income is going to be. So I'm trying to play that card with them. And then also I'm basically saying how the permanent insurance is better than the term. Meaning, all right, like if you're 70 and I got you a 10-year term, it would be a lot more expensive and it would run out at 80 and we'd be sitting here in the same position at 80 and you would have just paid the insurance carrier a lot of money. Whereas here, when we do the permanent plan, goes forever, builds cash value, will never run out, and we know it's a guarantee. Because we know when you die, it's a guarantee, and we're going to lose your, 2,500 of income, whatever it is. We need to know what Mary's getting. So you're trying to present that, because a lot of times I want to tell people that terms in that scenario, even if you could get it, is kind of fool's gold, because you could outlive it. They're only going to cover you for so many years, and it's going to cost 5 times as much as the equity protection will. Usually people get it, not always. But I find if you present it that way, as opposed to think about what I just said versus, hey, here's a 30,000 policy, it costs $150. Here's a 25,000 policy, it costs 130. There's no dimension to that. That's just like black and white numbers on a page. But if I bring you this Rubik's Cube as to what you're going to do with the money, then it makes a lot more sense because I'm painting the picture of down the road.
Now, do you write the amount of the policy? Let's say you're doing senior mortgage. Do you write 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 on the paper?
I'll write like 2 years mortgage payments equals 30,000 or 1.5 equals whatever. I'll typically do that 2 to 3 scenario. And again, I keep reiterating, this goes forever. This 100,000 term, and I tell people, I'm like if people can't get term, it goes back to the underwriting. I'm going to tell you how it's the worst thing in the world because it's the worst thing in the world for you because it doesn't make any sense for you. But this one does.
Got it. Do you ever run into situations where the client says, I am so healthy, and then you run the application and the doctor determines that was a lie?
Oh yeah, that never happens. Yes. Now there's two. I'm glad you brought that up. Number one, you need to question that hard in the beginning. So my question is always on health. Ever anything major? Heart, stroke, cancer. Okay, if I got past that, cool. What do you take medication for currently? Okay, cool. What are some of the things you were prescribed in the last 10 years? Ever pain meds? Ever anything for breathing? Like you kind of know the hot button things of the things that'll decline on a term, let's say, right? And I don't care if you're 25. Like I do it the same way because, like you meet plenty of people that are, 28 years old that can't get a term, or 40 something. Like we meet them in all age ranges. So you got to get very hard into those questions early on. Because the worst thing is when like your new agent calls you and they're like, yeah, I'm with, Mary, like she's really healthy and she takes these meds for asthma. Like, well, she's not that healthy. Like it's just newsflash.
Yeah.
So you got to like condition agents, like act like everybody's not healthy. Don't act like everybody's healthy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So dude, when you're in a situation, maybe with that same scenario, let's say you walk into the house and they show you their income, the mortgage is $1,200 a month. No matter who passes away, either of them can still afford the house very comfortably. So you're not really having a discussion about losing the house. Where do you build value in that and having some sort of insurance?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one that you brought that up. So one, I will tell people this. It's like when people say like, oh, like we have the money in savings or we have this, we have that. I'm like, perfect. That means two things. One, you can afford insurance. Two, why don't we use the insurance carrier's money and not your own? Because your own money is for the rest of your life, retirement. What's the number one biggest problem with people in retirement? They run out of money. So if we put a little bit aside here and get, put this small monthly premium to give you this bigger lump sum of money, whether it's term or whole, that protects you from having to use your money. Because the reality is the money you have there, you'll live a long time because you're fairly healthy, let's say. You'll run out of the money. The insurance you're not going to run out of. It's going to be there. So let's say you lived a long time and you spent all that money. That leaves you back now where you need something, which brings us right back to insurance.
Got it. Yeah, dude, that's so simple. Now, let's say you run into someone who you get their insurance out. They're a little bit older, right? And they have really, really good life insurance. How do you handle that?
Depends what really, really good life insurance is. So meaning if I meet somebody older and they have an IUL, okay, the first thing, that IUL might have been awesome when you were your age, my age. Mm-hmm. And the reality is they might have a good coverage amount, but the reality is on an IUL, the premium is going to go up, like any way you slice the pie. If they have just a straight whole, like let's say it's even one of our carriers that they've had for a decent amount of time, I'm going to probably leave it alone. But then I'm going to try to establish why that's not enough. Because the reality of life is like none of us have enough insurance. Like none of us do. Mm-hmm. Like if you really think about, Think about like what you make, what I make, our age, having a family, and if we didn't have our income,
Yeah.
and then throw it to a lot of the older clientele that we meet, nobody has enough. So I'm going to try, if they ever add to it and kind of play that argument. If it's outside of that scenario, though, like on these IULs for older clients, obviously a term is going to expire on an older client. I'm going to try and replace that all day, every day, or add to it.
Got it. Dude, go into the old famous work coverage. So you sit with someone, their 40s, they're making really good income, so not necessarily thinking about too much fear of loss, but hey, Steve, I've got several $100,000 worth of work coverage. How do you address that?
Oh, I love that. That's like my favorite one. I actually ask people the question, what do you have outside of work that acts like life insurance, right? Because then they'll tell you what you just said. And then I'll say, that's perfect. So you know that you rent it, you don't own it, right? And then they kind of give you that perplexed look. And I'm like, well, yeah, like if you leave your job, lose your job, retire from your job, you don't have that insurance. Work coverage says supplemental, meaning you need to supplement it with private insurance. Does that make sense, Bob? Like you own this house, you don't rent this house, right? So they kind of get it, and you have to kind of reiterate that again. And I'll also talk about the pandemic. I'll say one of the number one issues and number one things that I've seen, and I have seen it, is all those people lost their jobs. All those people lost their life insurance. You don't want to be that guy, do you, Bob?
Yeah. How do you even answer that? There's only one answer.
It's one answer.
Got it. So, dude, you've gone through the whole financial inventory. How do you go from the financial inventory to showing numbers? What's that transition there?
Yeah. Again, keeping it simple. So I bring my, white piece of paper and I will write out, okay, here's 3 options. If I feel good on a term, whatever it is from a health perspective, I'm going to show that. And typically, let's say it's full mortgage, half mortgage, a third of the mortgage. If it's final expense, full coverage, middle coverage, burial. You always want to show a high number, just to show the high number. But again, you don't want it to be confusing. Notice I didn't put down like 17 different types of policies. It's like, hey, here's this. Typically, if I'm doing HMS, I'm not a big like CBO guy. I mean, like the only time I use that as a chip is if I ask them about retirement, they don't have retirement, and I can use that to try and more solidify the sale as to another component that the policy is going to do. So I just show 2 or 3 options and say, hey, which one would best fit your budget? And then I wait for them to answer because they're going to say something.
Now, Steve, I really need to think about this.
Perfect. They need to think about you. So here's the process. We are going to run your health because you told me to take a couple things. I don't know if they're going to take you. I work with different companies, hopefully. We're going to see if they're going to take you. We're going to run you through. We're going to submit the application. They're going to give you 30 days to review it and go over it. But the number one thing is before you can think, they need to think.
Got it. Now, are you doing the application at the end? When are you actually getting into the application with the client?
I start them right away because I'm assuming everything. I guess as far as completely doing it at the end, but as I'm going through it, I'll literally open an app and just start putting in the pertinent information. Because again, I also operate from a place of volume. If I always book a full day or try to, I have other people to see. So I'm going to start the process. We go. If I have any, hey, I'm not going to do it, I move on. But I'm going to start it moving. I don't want to be there all day long.
Got it. So you're going, let's say you're running America right away. You're just filling out that whole first page. Do you get any kickback when you ask for the social at that point? If you do, what does that look like?
I think sometimes you do, but I think the key to that is the way you ask the question and how many questions you ask. Meaning, if I continuously asked you questions from the minute I walked in your door until the point I got to your social, and I asked them the same way, I didn't ask you looking weird or looking the other way. Okay, so you've lived here 7 years. Okay, cool. Your address is this. Cool. Your email. Cool. social, like it's the same as everything else. I just keep asking you. You know what I mean? So it's not weird.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, dude, that's so simple. Yeah, yeah, no doubt, man. That should be a t-shirt or something. Don't be weird, right? Right?
Don't be weird.
So, okay, so they pick an option. You say grab your driver's license. They go do it. Do you do anything to tie the sale down afterwards?
Yeah, typically throughout that application, what I'm trying to do is, like, let's say they just got through the first MIB, right? I'm going to say, wow, that's really awesome. You know, you told me the blood pressure popped up, or the diabetes popped up, or whatever popped up. That's really awesome. You got through it. I've had like 5 people this week that got declined. I'm trying to throw you stuff that whole process because I want you to think like, man, like, okay, like they don't just take anybody on this. You have to create doubt. Now, okay, so I got through it, the banking, we submitted it, cool. Then the solidification is going to get your policy in 7 days. Here's an extra business card. If anything happens, I want you to give this to your beneficiary. They're going to call me directly, and I program them in my phone. I put them under client, whatever. When you call me, I'm going to answer within 24 hours, and I have you right here. So if anything happens, yes, you can call the insurance carrier, but I want you to call me first. And I throw this out there. I say, I'm the number 1 producer in the company, so you're going to get me, and insurance companies do what I need. And they like that. Like, I don't know if it's, works, whatever.
Dude, it works.
Works for you, do it.
Yeah,
right? Do
yeah,
it.
For sure. Not everyone gets to say that. Only one person.
Right. So I want to show them that, look, like, I'm going to be here and work hard for you.
Yeah.
And when I say it too, I like joke and I'm like, look, I go, I'm not special. I go, I'm probably good at one thing, and that's insurance. And that's just because I work really hard. I think people want to see that. You know what I mean? Like, I find, and I bet you'd agree, living in Florida, I don't know how long you've been down here. A lot of people down here, contractors, just companies, they don't work. There's a very like lazy way about Florida. I don't know what it is. I love it here. It's awesome. But there's a lazy way about it. And I find that when you can show that you're not that lazy guy, people respect it down here.
Yeah. Well, and dude, you said something so good. That's really what they care about. They want to know that you're going to work hard for them and that you care.
100%.
And you can be a terrible salesperson, do a terrible job in the house, but if you care, they're going to forgive all of the mistakes. They're going to forgive everything you do when you're a rookie. They just want to know that someone is there to care about them, and they're not going to sell them. And you said that so powerful. They don't want to be sold. They want to be helped. And dude, let's be real. That's what helps us feel good about this. I've sold a lot of stuff, but I didn't feel good about it. I feel good about what we do.
Absolutely, bro.
Yeah. So, dude, I mean, so simple. It's very obvious why you're helping so many families. You're working hard, leading by example, and you're keeping it simple. I mean, honestly, anybody can do that. Will everyone do that? No. But anybody can replicate that for sure.
Definitely.
So, Steve, if you can kind of just give us a parting shout, man, what would you say to someone who's trying to level up in the house and develop a more strong sales presentation? What would you say to them?
I think a couple of things. I think one, act like you belong to be there, right? You have a license. So like carry yourself, even if you don't know everything, because let's face facts, none of us know everything. Okay. I still don't. But pretend and act like you are the professional sitting there with them, right? Body language, eye contact, asking the right questions, the way you ask the right questions, your patience. One thing that I know that I struggle with sometimes is patience. And I think it's something like a top producer deals with. You're so used to producing, and then sometimes you're in that appointment and like they need a little bit more coddling or they need some more patience, and you want to speed it up. And I've learned lately, I'm like, slow down, have some patience. And then I'd say in your time in between your appointments, listen to stuff. There is so much content. If there was one thing that I was really good at early on, I was really good at listening to a lot of content and honing in on my craft. Now, notice I didn't say to do that 8 a.m. on Monday, Thursday. Okay. While you're in your car, you should either be listening to something from somebody, or if you're recruiting, calling somebody, talking to someone. Work the day the way it was intended to be worked, and you will provide a lot for your family. You'll sell a lot of insurance. You'll build a big team if that's what you're doing. But listen to stuff. Don't just, I went to my appointments. They either worked out or they didn't, and then I didn't talk to anybody. You should reach out to somebody on your team, on another team. And I think if you can hone in on that early on, you'll be successful. I think a lot of people, it's a lost art, the art of legit training and learning your craft.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you say it like this, we get paid to talk to a lot of people.
Yep.
All day. Well, dude, sincerely, I appreciate you hopping on with us, man. This is going to create a lot of value for me, for my team, but for the company. And dude, let's crush this thing, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.